Hold on, we're rolling. All right, welcome to Streets and Sanitation. We may actually mix in a little electrical at the end of this meeting. Present today are Public Works Director Troy Kruger, Finance Officer Chandra Phillips, Councilman Clunt, and Councilman Hockett, I'll spit it out, and Street and Sanitation Supervisor Kelly Duffy. So we are going to start on streets, and I would like to start with the bill that we received and work through this. Can I see that bill, please? The streets have come in at $826,520.72. Working through this, we had budgeted $600,000 in last year's budget. This year we, in committee only, have earmarked $121,000 from contingency for known overage and mill and overlay. That takes it to 721. We're 105,000 short in your budget. I'd like to know how you're going to cover the 105.
So I still have to, that bill came in Friday afternoon, so I got to review the quantities and the measurements because both Brook from like 2 minutes, we measured that multiple times, and so it's higher than it shouldn't be that high. And I also have to review what they charged us per ton. But taking that bill for what it is, on my sheets, Kelly, if I subtract that bill from Kelly's budget, he's got $47,370 left in his streets budget, and that's one payroll to take out also. But he transferred in the 121 that council approved to give the streets for that project, and then there's about $70,000 coming back from the FEMA for the overages that the streets went last year for that big snowstorm. I think like a small portion of that is airport, but most of it's streets. And then another $100,000 for that dump truck, which that dump truck has to be spent on.
Can I pause on the FEMA? Do those funds go directly back to those departments, or do they go to the general ledger, the general fund?
So there is probably, I think the electric department was 20,000+, and airport was maybe $500. There is a total of 71,000, and so if you take the 21,000 approximately, the rest would go to general fund, and for the council to either, you can just put it into cash, or you can reimburse streets fuel for that line. It doesn't go directly to streets because it's a reimbursement that you already spent out of your cash. But if you choose to, as council, reimburse streets, whomever, you're more than welcome to do that.
Came out of streets. But
What was the total on the FEMA, Troy, or Chandra?
It's right now a little over 71,000 total.
So about 50,000 that won't go back to the specialty fund of the airport or to the enterprise fund.
I can get those exact numbers for you if you'd like.
Don't need them.
Okay.
If you get me close, the point is the electrical fund, the enterprise will get theirs, $500 to the airport, which is a specialty enterprise. It's an enterprise. That leaves 50,000 plus for the council to move from FEMA, or leave it in the general.
That came from debris cleanup and my wages for doing all of the collection of it. And I don't know how they broke out, if streets just paid for all of that gas when they were doing the debris cleanup during cleanup week. I don't know how
But
that works. We
for the
all have
purpose
figured.
of council appointed and supervisor, those funds in the public, these go back to the general funds unless council moves them. That's where they go. They're receipted in there. Okay. So, council, you're aware of that. Troy, you're aware of that. Kelly, you're aware of that. That has to come from council to move those. Sorry to interrupt, Troy. 50,000 for FEMA, 121 from contingency. What else do we have?
Streets, 47,370 over in Kelly Street budget.
No. Anyways, we have a little bit of miscellaneous concrete, probably about $20,000 left of miscellaneous concrete to be built out. And then streets will pretty much be done for the year. They'll have enough, they've got enough money in their budget to cover everything that they gotta do this year.
What's the average payroll every 2 weeks, Kelly, in your department?
About $7,000. A little over seven.
Miscellaneous concrete, are your numbers matching these?
My numbers are a lot higher than theirs. I got everything up to date, every PO that's been issued up to date, so. Her numbers can be up to, depending on when the invoices come in, they can be up to 2 months behind.
You still have an insurance payment coming out for 6291 from your department, is that correct, Chandra?
Yes.
Managed IT 765, shop supplies 1707, utilities still coming out. The fuel, is that projected?
That is, I took the number of what they've used so far this year, divided it by the 8 months, and then took it times the remaining 4 months. So that's, if they're using the same as what they've used over the last 8 months, that's where that came in.
I guess the big question is the 100,000 that was transferred in for street equipment. It's almost like we can't order that until we know where we sit.
Oh, you'll be good. The truck has to be paid. I mean, the truck was, the $100,000 for the truck was transferred in with just the agreement that it would be used for the truck only, a plow truck, so I don't think that 100,000 is touchable unless it's spent on a dump truck.
We do have to go out for bid on it because it's over 50,000, and there are Sourcewell state bids, they don't do used equipment, so I'll have to go out for bid.
Can you get a hold of me once you went through, will you go through this with bituminous today? The tonnage is off. I think it's supposed to be at 159 a ton. If I-
154.
154, they're at 164.
164. This is their bid. $2 per square yard for milling and 164 for the tonnage.
So the unit prices are correct, we just gotta get through the quantities. Okay, I'm done. Any questions from council before we turn this over?
It just it doesn't look like it's gonna come out under budget, but
I need your permission as a committee, which this committee back in February, when we went out for bid, the committee at that time said reserve 121,000 from contingency, but don't transfer it till we know what we need. So it has not been transferred at this time. It does not have full council approval to be transferred at this time, but I need to send it to full council to be approved for this budget. So I need this committee to tell me, can we move the 121?
well, we have to do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
You have to
that's
send
a
it to full
no-brainer.
council.
Okay.
We have to send it to full council, see what they want to do with it. If the numbers are correct, Troy, why the $100,000 over the it's really 200 and some thousand over the 600,000 originally, but if we
It's
agreed
just-
to that in committee, why would it be another 100 and some thousand if those figures are accurate?
It's just the tonnage when they start putting the material down, how thick they put it on and what it comes in at. It's, we got, it's, how would I put it? I mean, we did not do any, chip sealing this year. We did not do any, we decided to do crack sealing, so we spent Kelly's budget.
But that's not my point. My point is we have to be closer when we figure this. We can't last year, look how far we was over last year.
Well,
And look at this year,
Last year
we're
we had-
scrambling now to cover this
last year we had.
because the figures of whoever measured that up, they're not right. We need more accurate figures so we get a more accurate number for the council. We can't, I mean, we're scrambling now to cover this, and it's not a good position to be in for anybody really, but, so what can we do going forward to minimize this?
I don't think.
Well, we can come closer to this.
You don't think we're?
I don't think we're scrambling to cover it. I think we're spending
You
his
think
budget.
you think we got it covered?
I think we have it covered.
Okay,
I think
well.
we're spending Kelly's budget.
Okay,
for the
well,
I have to look at
That's
what I
all
can
right.
get done during the year. I have to look at the projects that we can do. I have to look at the money that's appropriate to do those projects. And it's almost September, and we've got curb and gutter just wrapping up. We're wrapping up with a crack sealing project that was the alternative to chip seal. We have to crack seal before we chip seal. We didn't do any chip sealing this year. So we are spending Kelly's budget.
okay.
When the first bid came in, it was, we had $600,000 to work with, and we measured it up, and they thought that the bill was gonna, we figured it, we knew it was gonna go over 700,000. So we came to council and we asked them if they would appropriate some more money to it, so that you guys agreed to do that, based upon the measurements that came in and what
Council didn't, the committee did.
the committee did.
Committee did, not
No,
the
I
full
think we brought it to
council.
full council.
I thought we did too, guys.
Never came.
I know it was talked about at full council.
In the future, even if we talk about it,
Oh, I agree.
this has to be transferred right away. We
Right
gotta
away.
vote on it.
It's got to be an actionable item.
Yeah, we have to
and
make
allow
it an
you to
actionable
vote
item.
one way or the other.
But, I mean, when we were budgeting, we were counting on that money coming out of the cash on hand. We were unappropriated cash. When we were going through the budgeting process, we were already talking about that money coming out, going to the streets.
Contingency, yeah.
I mean, everybody knew it. We were using it when we were trying to figure out our final budget numbers for the year. We talked about the $120,000 being transferred to the streets. So, I mean, I don't think it's a surprise.
The 121 isn't
No.
a surprise to me. The 826 is.
That's what's remaining in his budget to get through the year to do projects. So, we added in a couple streets. We spent his budget. That's my job, spend his budget, get as much work done as we can for the money that's appropriated. It came in, I mean, there's no magic. I can't say when we do these projects. It depends on how thick they lay it on the street, how much of a crown they put on it. I mean, the amount that we took off the streets and the amount, we didn't know when we milled 9th Street how thin it actually was on 9th Street. So we took a little more, we had to take a little more off, we had to put a little more on. I figured that this number would come in, a little bit higher than what we had anticipated. It came in quite a bit higher, I guess. I got to talk to Rook on his measurements. Kelly's got the measurements on his phone. But it's a construction project. It is, it kind of is what it is, but we're covered. Streets is fine. We'll get
You
that.
think at the end of the year there's nothing more coming out?
No. mean, he's done spending for the year, but
What the concern of council is at the end of the year, last year, we transferred, I can't remember, like 300,000. Am I correct in saying that?
no, I think it was, we had like 600 and some budgeted, and we spent 1.2 million.
By the end of the year, we had to we transferred twice to cover. And you're saying with the transfer of the 121,000 in contingency and what is remaining in the other lines, you're gonna cover the 826 and not ask council for anything more.
Correct.
And leave the truck,
Pardon me?
and leave the
Yeah,
truck in.
the truck was, that was Jeremy Clay and
Brad,
Brad.
yeah,
That's
Councilman
it.
Clay and Schramm.
Because Jeremy took a truck out of operation. He said that white truck, park it, don't move it, don't use it anymore. We've determined that that truck is not, I mean, it's got over 1 million miles on it, but it's just not worth fixing anymore. The brakes are shot, the transmission's not good. It's got multiple issues, so we parked that truck. Jeremy and Brad said, go find another dump truck. And they wanted to transfer in $100,000, but it has to be spent on a dump truck, nothing else.
When you're looking for a used truck, it's not like go out here to Harry Kay and buy a truck. Time we get it and talk to him, talk to Troy, the truck's gone. That's the problem we was having. So that's when they said, here's $100,000, find a truck. That's what we were told.
Yeah, we found multiple trucks, we just haven't been able to get, the other thing is it's a piece of equipment, you have to, we technically have to put it out for bids. Well, how do you go out to bid on a used piece of equipment? Because you'd have to write the bid spec up specifically for that truck. And anyone can come in and bid on it, so, if they have a used truck and it meets the criteria of the bid, then you end up with the truck that you, whoever puts in a bid on it, but it's a tough deal when it comes to used equipment. It's not, haven't found a way around it yet. You can't use Sourcewell, you can't use any of those bidding, programs, so I don't, we had one located here just like a week ago, and it's gone now, I believe. Scott Mathis was looking for us.
Did we lose it?
But I don't, our lawyer's not around right now to look at bid specs, and I started scribbling one up, but by the time I called Scott back, he's like, yeah, it's already gone, so.
At the end of the day, my biggest concern. Troy, you have your numbers. We have what's been submitted and through finance. $1,611,187. It's got to cover it through the end of the year.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
And I'm counting on that FEMA money to go back to streets, that's where it came out of.
You're counting on that 50,000.
Yeah, I mean, that came out of
Let's have that
streets.
conversation with council.
That came out of streets, it should go back into streets. That was for the snow removal for those big storms and their cleanup of the trees and all that good stuff. That came out of streets, that needs to go back into streets.
I'm fine with that, but I don't think should bank on it before council approves it. I mean, I'm fine with it.
I think we're learning our lessons with contingency, transfer it when it's supposed to.
Yeah, I didn't even know the
Don't bank
FEMA money
anything.
wasn't here yet. I thought it was already here, but
No, we've been working on that for months and months and months. Every time we think it's done, we gotta submit another something, this or that, but. Sanitation's in the same boat as streets. We don't have any wiggle room in sanitation. Pretty much just operationally, we just keep doing what we do and get to the end of the year.
So the other thing on the street deal is you said you added 2 extra streets because you wanted to spend the budget. So we do have to do a change order to the original contract since we added quantities. So we'll have to have a change order and that's fine. We had one from last year too that we can utilize and copy paste type of deal. So we can do that, but that'll have to go to full council to approve as well. Because anytime you go above the contract, there's a change order.
But when we went back to council and asked them to give us more money to do the original contract, that's when that would be the change order that we're talking about.
So your original contract was 36,000 square yards of milling, 3,960 tons of overlay, and then we obviously.
Read that again.
36,000 square yards of milling, 3,960 tons.
What was the original bid that they throw it at us?
That's it.
Okay, when we measured the streets, we was under.
Yeah, we didn't change that, but
No.
we went back to council and asked them for more money to accommodate that bid.
Yes,
We
accommodate
didn't
this
add to
bid.
that bid, that's the original bid.
Yeah,
So that's the same amount of
Same
Yeah.
amount.
tonnage and yardage.
yeah.
We're 349 square yards over
And then he
and
rebid.
636 ton, 636.48 ton over on quantity. The square yards, that quantity is only 1% over what we originally did, that 349 yards.
Once we
Which
built
is-
them, we didn't realize, I mean, we haven't run into too much of this soft spots, blowouts, no asphalt on 9th and 11th, I believe, was bad. And it's either, they come in and put a skim layer on, how long is that gonna last? Not very long. So, I suppose that's a little bit of it too, trying to do it right, or the best we can.
That tonnage is the exact, yeah.
What's that?
If you took 636 times the 164, it's 104,304. And then your 700 extra in there, that's 105. The 700 extra in millings that's not a big deal.
So, digging deeper, you're right, your square yardage is almost right on. And you take the 36,000 times the 2, you're looking at 72,000. Had they hit 3960 at the 164, that was 649, 440, plus the 72,000, that's the 721.
Oh, yeah.
So these are answers that I personally want to figure out with you. So you're talking about the depth of the streets, how much tonnage we put on. There's no way to turn him off on those streets at that point. Once it's milled, we got to put on whatever it is to protect those streets. Could have been more than this, quite honestly.
I think it could have been more.
You don't think it could have been more?
It was,
Is there ever gonna be
It was a lot of
scenarios? Is there ever gonna be scenarios where his tonnage is less?
well, I know there was, I mean, I didn't really plan on bringing this to streets today. I wasn't ready to talk about it because I haven't had that conversation with bituminous yet.
Right.
I know there was 10 ton of waste. So that 10 ton probably shouldn't have been charged to the city of Winter. Because I talked to the guy that runs the mill. And so I have to have that conversation with Rook. But there was 10 ton of waste at the end of the project. And that was charged to us, and I don't know where they went with that waste. So that, I have to have that conversation. It's, every time we do this, it's a different scenario. It just depends on, when we milled Ninth Street, the edges of Ninth Street literally were 1 inch thick. I mean, there was no material there whatsoever. So we had him take it down the full 2 inches. And now we've taken your street away. We don't know what's under these streets until we start, you know, other than we can go around and start, you know, we know that we fix potholes every year, and we know that, you know, we have some thin spots in the streets, but you're talking 3 blocks from Lamb Road down to South County of, once it's milled off and you start putting material back on, you gotta put it back on so you're doing the street right. I mean, there's no going halfway at it.
And some of these tonnages, they did like 1.5 inches or so, they called it, to basically level the street, because it was, you know what I'm saying?
A crown.
Basically to fix your street, so they could put their machine would put your street in so it didn't look like this. Does that make sense?
I'm learning.
Okay, so that's where some of this tonnage did go, because they'd had that whole long run.
Yeah.
He put a leveling on the one side.
You had to.
Yeah.
There was no base course under the street, it was just clay.
And then it fixed the street for what?
So if he would've just went through and put his 2-inch mat on it, it would've started sinking, you know, there was
You wouldn't have been
nothing under
happy.
to support the street. No base course, no concrete, no nothing, it was just clay. And it's a spot that the street was bad before we did this. So we dug it out and we put material in there before he came through, and it still didn't, when they drove their trucks over to deliver the material, it just squished it out. I mean, it just mushed, so he had to go through and lay a leveling layer all the way down that street pretty much to get it firmed up so that we could put a mat on it.
Okay. Last question I gotta know. In the original bid that went out, did we say 36,000 square yards? Just for a change order perspective.
Yeah, your bid says approximately but not limited to 36,000 square yards at a 2-inch depth. Milling may require a 2-inch depth at curb edge to taper to 1-inch depth at the middle of the street.
Tonnage.
I'm looking for where it talks about tonnage. It doesn't tell me an exact amount for tonnage. That's just what their bid, they wrote on someone, I guess I don't know who. It looks like they did 3,960 ton. So that's what they bid their tonnage would come in at.
So, as we look at this, our quantities was only 1% over what we did. So we really didn't add 2 blocks at 1% over.
We did when Rook came and said, and we figured out what we were gonna get done. We came to council and we said, hey, we're gonna do this project, would you guys give us another, so we can get done what we wanna get done? We asked council
For the
for
121.
the 121.
Yeah.
Right.
But when we bid this out at 36,000 square yards.
Yes.
And it just went over less than 1%. Less than 1%.
Yes.
As far, so that's not, from the time we went to bid, we didn't add streets.
You can't see, adding 2 blocks is not evident with that 36,000 figure.
Well, we went to 36,349. What we mill up, and this was my thoughts when I heard about this weekend. Tell me if I'm crazy, but our quantity on what we milled, we knew what we were gonna mill. We always know, we're within 1%. The problem becomes, how bad are those streets? When we did East 11, that was a blotter street that we tore out, and to make it an actual road, you had to put a lot more tonnage on it to fix it. And I'm not defending, this is just my thought process. So we're less than 1% over on what we committed to do. They came to council, asked for the 121. The difference is the tonnage because of 9th Street leveling.
11th and 9th, I believe.
10th Street also?
No, I think 10th was good, that I believe. I know he did a run all the way down on 11th and I believe 9th. They
And
had
those are two long runs.
two
that-
long runs.
And you're saying it will fit in your 1,611,187. If the FEMA comes over, you're gonna ask
I was
council.
under, the FEMA thing, I was always under the understanding that the FEMA thing, I mean, it goes to the general, but it should go back to streets, that's where it came out of. And I think in the grant, or in the FEMA grant itself, that was, I mean, it goes back into the city budget, but
Correct.
why would you not put it back in streets where it came out as our operating budget?
You absolutely can. Some cities don't. Some cities just leave it in general to be part of unappropriated cash for the next year. You're not required to reimburse those funds. You're just required to put the money back into the correct fund that spent it.
That's council's option.
Correct.
It's where it should be the option.
And I can't guarantee you when that money will be here. Like he said, every time we think we're done, surprise, we have another question because you're dealing not only with the local, state level, you're also dealing with the federal level. I don't know where we're at on it.
But our tonnage, going back to, we originally wanted 36,000 square yards. It was less than 1% over at 36,349. Originally, we thought 3,960 ton to get to that 721. It came in 636 ton over, which is 16% over at 154 a ton. I'm starting to understand a little the equation a little bit better. And I'm all about equations, you know
I
that
figured it
formula.
higher this year. Normally we go 0.11. That's how they figured it out, the 2-inch. So I took it times 0.13 this year, and we still went that far over.
Yeah, how can we going forward, how can we
Yeah,
hedge our
I
bets
agree with
and
that
get
part.
these numbers a little bit closer? How can we do that?
Is there any?
You guys are, I don't know how to build a street. You guys do. I don't know these figures. You guys do. We rely on that. But we have a budget constraint that we have to work with tax dollars. But we gotta crank this a little bit tighter so that we know if you have, Kelly, if you say that some of them spots, you don't know if they're soft and they need a lot more or whatever.
Is there any way to find out in advance?
Yeah, probably not, but
I mean,
let's, going
no,
forward,
you're saying no.
let's plan on that.
Unless
then.
we bid it different, unless we bid it with the whole leveling and everything in it, and then,
Well, next year we have next year we have a very, very tight budget.
he's just saying that's an
And we have
option.
$600,000
that
and
we
there's no wiggle room.
change the way we
You know,
bid
we
this.
weren't given any other,
Bid it so every
Cut his-
street year, it's junk.
we cut his mill.
Hope for the best.
Cut his, chip sealing back,
Yeah.
we cut, we cut everything
I
back.
don't-
We don't have
I wanna
any,
hear.
we don't have any wiggle room in next year's budget, so,
I agree.
next year, I think, next year we do, we plan to spend 400,000, or we plan to spend, we'll do X amount of streets, but, we just plan to not have any room in there
If you
whatsoever.
can see where it's gonna be over, then cut down the blocks if you can, but I know when you get deep into this process, you can't stop the horses once they start across the stream.
Yeah,
I know that, but,
this was another fairly substantially large project, when you're
oh,
talking
yeah,
26 blocks, I think it was a total of 26 blocks.
and they're really nice, by the way,
Yeah,
they're really nice,
at a price,
yeah.
I think I got the bill Friday, I spent 2 hours going through his budget. He's gonna be fine. I think, truly believe he's gonna be fine. It's gonna be very close.
Well, yeah.
But he's gonna be fine. We spent his budget, we did what we were
No,
supposed to do.
I'm just, Kelly made the comment that when we do these bids in the future, that we, per square yard, just plan on shitty streets. I went back to your figure, the tonnage per square yard, we're putting on 0.126, actually 0.127 tons per square yard. That's our formula.
That's a lot. They tell us to figure .11, that's what they figured.
Fuck. excuse me, I mean, I agree with Kelly. We have to plan for the worst and
That's
hope for
right.
the best going forward.
That's my thought. That's what I'm trying to say. Plan
I-
for the worst. And have the money there. If we don't need it, we don't need it.
Yep,
But
I agree.
we can't be scrambling.
Like,
We're not scrambling.
Well,
well,
okay.
but if this was,
Thank you.
but you made the comment on next year's budget. If this happened next year with no contingency, we would be
Well,
scrambling. It's so
next
tight.
year, next year, we don't have the option to go and ask for another $100,000.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
We cut his chip sealing back to, we cut all of his projects back by almost 50%. So next year, we need to be spot on. Maybe we
That's-
don't do mill and overlay next year because it's such an imprecise,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, or we do.
On a
we
tight
just
year.
do-
Maybe we do 10 blocks.
we pick out like 10 blocks, and we just do 10 blocks, and then whatever, if I can get that done maybe earlier in the season, say like a early summer project, then we can do some more chip sealing, because chip sealing's more, you buy the oil by the gallon, you measure the street up, you know exactly how much you're putting on. It's a more workable figure. I can tell you, when we do chip seal, what it's gonna cost, almost down to the, we've already bought the chips.
I think I can tell you mill and grind and overlay now.
No, you can't.
I think I can. We're gonna go high. We're gonna go 1.13.
That's what I did this year.
Well, it came in at
It came in at
1.126.
2.7.
Yeah, but you said 0.13?
1.1 is what they figured.
Oh, 113.
Yeah. It just, like like he said, but we figured, I know we have 10 ton that they owe us money for. That's not, I got that from the guy that runs the plant. There was 10 ton of waste, which is not a significant figure,
No,
but,
it's not.
I was surprised when I saw it, but we're covered. I mean, we covered it.
Okay. I have no further questions. Do you, Councilman?
No.
Does, like I said, the remainder of the streets projects this year is, EV's got he had one floor left
Yeah, he's about half.
on Adams.
He's
The
almost
curb
done.
gutter's done, so we'll have one more bill from him, and that'll be in that $20,000 range. And that'll spend all the curb and gutter money. We have some miscellaneous concrete that he's gonna do, but I've got some miscellaneous concrete and water and sewer, and we're gonna use that because streets is pretty much spent. So we still have some downtown Main Street work to do. There's a storm sewer in front of True Value that really needs to be fixed bad. And then we're just trying to get Main Street kind of whipped into shape with curb and gutter. Yeah, we have that drainage ditch behind the Lewis Apartments that we're gonna start working on here pretty soon. I think that's gonna take us pretty much all fall to do that. And we already have all the materials bought for that. That's coming out of sewer, out of the $25,000 that we set aside. The streets department's gonna work on that project along with sewer and water, but we gotta get that one done. We're losing our street over there. That's just a mess. It's a public nuisance. Water's always sitting there. We got mosquitoes. So that's after this, we have 2 days of crack sealing left, today and tomorrow. And then we'll wrap up the crack sealing project for the year. And that's rental equipment we've been using, so we'll return that and then start, we have Carnival coming in this week. That's a big deal. Takes a lot of time. And after the Carnival's done, we'll focus on that ditch, try and get that ditch wrapped up before the end of the year. I've been promising those people over there for a year that we're gonna do that ditch, so
Yep, now's the time.
it's a much needed project, but yeah, that kinda wraps up our streets for the year. Which was great. We have those big projects all done. Our mill and overlay's done, our crack sealing's done. We've got about, over 1,000 ton of chips
Yep.
purchased out of this year's, so that we got those, well, because next year the price will just go up. So we bought 1,000 ton of chips, they're sitting back there so we can do some chip sealing next year. Just kind of setting ourselves up for future projects. And sanitation. Not a whole lot of excitement working with garbage.
Can be.
Just putting more tonnage on that trailer hauling it up there, is that helping things out a little bit?
It is.
Is it making less loads?
We're still at 2 loads a week.
2
I
loads
think
a
that's
week.
just pretty much what it's gonna be. That little, gotta be careful with that little mini. We pack it in there and that trailer gets a little heavy. We've discussed that, putting a dead axle on it, so we can get more on it.
If you did that, how many tons did you put on there? How extra could you put on?
If you're not careful, you can get over 100. So, we gotta watch it. The week that we ran into trouble was that week we had all that rain. And when you get that much rain and people are not good about, especially on the commercial side, they don't get those dumpster lids shut. And that garbage gets wet and it gets super heavy when it's wet. And that's the week that we ran into problems.
That stands to reason.
All that garbage soaked up all that moisture and it got heavy. So, but it is an option, we can put a dead axle on that trailer, just, that'll give us another 8, like 8 ton, I think is, and then, when we put in for the grant to get some reimbursement back for that, and hopefully get a truck out of it, we definitely wanna get a drop-down axle on that truck. Cause then we can get up to like 96,000, 98,000 pounds going down the road and be legal. Now, then we can pack it pretty full.
Yeah.
Trailer works great though. I mean, I haven't heard anything from the drivers other than watching our weight a little bit, but
Yeah.
it unloads in about 15 minutes. The transfer station looks good for what we're doing. I think our recycles picked up since the county had it. We're getting a lot of people show up to recycle. We're sending Travis around. Travis is pretty busy, but he's going around picking up
Cardboard.
15 or 20 different areas of cardboard now. Just going out in the public and getting that
That's what it
out of
takes.
our trash stream. But we've got another, I got a call. We got another load of recyclable materials ready to go right now. Cardboard, plastic, and aluminum.
I think them trailers, if we could ever get them in would help with our recycle.
Do we need to sign a contract with somebody as far as our recyclables? That company Millennial was over here. Will that help the city of Winter?
I haven't signed any contract with
I,
anybody.
I know, but I mean, is this information that we should bring to council? Is there a price difference for our recyclables that they can put on paper that our council may be interested in signing the contract with them? If there's no price difference, doesn't make sense to.
It's not really so much the price difference, from what I understood when she came to visit us.
Will she take it?
It's the priority at which,
It's the market in the downtimes is what she said.
well,
We could still, in the downtimes, we could still, if we signed this contract, we could still get rid of our stuff through her company, even in the bad times.
so if we sign a contract with her, she can kind of count on, every so many days, you're gonna get X amount of ton from us of this, X amount of ton from that. And then when she goes to market it, goes out looking for buyers, then she can count on our product. So that's what she's gonna go. She's gonna go and look for buyers, and she's gonna say, I have X amount of tons of this, X amount of tons of that, counting on our stuff in her numbers.
Yeah.
If she can't count on us, then we take a back seat.
Yeah.
And like when COVID hit and all the factories shut down, she was able to keep her steady customers, she was able to keep them going and keep that supply going to the factories because she knew her numbers. But if we sign a contract, that's kind of what we're signing is a guarantee that she's gonna move our product before the people that just come in and drop off stuff.
We got another round of COVID coming, so maybe it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's monkeypox this time or something.
No, it's election interference.
But yeah, that's what,
Yeah, that's what she
was.
Yep, she can get rid of, even in a bad time, she can count our stuff, fills out her loads, then we do it that way.
yeah. So, I mean, the cardboard, for example, it was like 2 years, or before COVID hit, there was a market for it. They were making stuff
Yep.
out of it, they were
Yep.
recycling it, using it, and then COVID hit and the factory shut, went down to 50% operation. Well, the people that weren't under contract with her, they didn't get anything for it. It probably was costing them money to get rid of it. And those places are starting to open back up and do business again, but yeah, I think it is. It would be in our benefit to sign something with her.
I don't think it would hurt.
They have a truck that comes through,
I don't think we'd get hurt
Wednesdays.
by it.
they have a truck that comes through our area like
Wednesdays.
Wednesdays, but all we have to do is call her, and then we can throw our load on because they're going back empty anyways. And it costs us like $300, I think is what the price was, to get a whole load from here to Sioux Falls. So that's a pretty good price.
Yeah.
It's just a backhaul for them, so instead of going back empty, they're bringing material back. So we just give her like a week's notice and we get on that.
Quick question, cold milling on asphalt is $2 per square yard, is that right? Concrete, we talked about Monroe Street, and they did 6th Street for us, what are they?
8.
8.
And it's a much slower process. We talked to him about it, kind of had a good conversation with the guys from Bituminous, and I thought he didn't want to put that on 6th Street to true that up. That just half block that we did there, because the concrete was a mess. So he just, what he did is he set his miller to a 2-inch depth on one side, and he was just taking off like an inch on the other side, and he told us that. So the asphalt that's right up against the gutter is half as thick as the stuff that's in the street, but he put a crown back in the street. And he told us if we want, he would do the 2-inch across the whole street, but he said just that quarter block, he's got asphalt blades on his, so he's got asphalt, the cutters on his machine are made for asphalt, not concrete. He didn't have those with him, so he said it'll take him a long time to do a full 2-inch depth on concrete with the way he was set up, but, yeah, it's a lot more expensive. Goes through a lot more water when he does it, because it's a lot dustier. Yeah, it's a slower process. But I think it's a great option for
Monroe
for
would
these
bring it.
streets, because, but if you go around and tear out all that concrete, then you're gonna wanna put in, you're gonna wanna go in and put a fairly decent depth, so you're probably gonna have to do kinda like what we did on 9th Street. You're gonna have to put a layer of asphalt down to kinda chew everything up, and then you'll have to come back and put a full 2-inch mat on it. And so that's like it's a 2-part process. It took them almost an extra half a day to do 9th Street, because you lay that asphalt down, then you gotta let it cool, so it needs to sit overnight. And then you come back in and you put your finished layer on top of it. But I think it'd be a great option for the streets around here, because it would cost you a lot less money than reconcreting them.
Is 6th Street an option? Just with our 6th Street concrete street, it doesn't have rebar in there, it's just got that fiber mesh, but it's heaving and moving. That's probably not an option for that Sixth Street, is it?
Yeah.
It'll still move, though.
Well, that's, I think it's done, you know, the places that we're seeing it getting really bad, like, right at the top of Polk is a good example.
It is.
And there's, on one side of the street, there's a cluster of 3 valves, and on the other side of the street, there's a manhole. And so you can see that the compaction around those 2 spots was not good. Just because you know, they can't get in there with the packer, and they probably didn't get a jumping jack or something and pack around those manholes and those valve boxes like they probably should have. So that where the compaction wasn't there.
It heaved.
That's where the street's sinking. The rest of the street, it's not that bad, it's just, you know, it's moving, but it's only moved, you know, this much in 20 years, well. But if you put it back to concrete, it's gonna cost you 4 times what it's gonna cost you to do that.
Oh, I know. I know that. That's not even,
And the curb is good, the curb and gutter on Sixth Street's very good. That's probably one of the nicest streets in town for curb and gutter.
So, makes sense. Cut it down.
That's,
But
That's all over top, that's probably the only option.
that's what we found on these 2 streets, 4th and 5th. There was concrete underneath those 2. And then, when he went over it, they're solid. I mean, we're crack sealing this week, we're cracks, well, we did Polk, we're doing Lamro. Polk's been down for 3 years now. And we're doing the gutter, so it looks like we're doing a lot, but
Yeah.
we've only found, I only, like 1 or 2 cracks going across the street per block, that's all it's moving. It's not cracking that bad. It's just, you know, it's good.
so what is the order when you said in 3 years, we have to have a chip seal on it?
Don't have to, but,
That's ideal?
yeah, I mean. it's-
Year 2, you crack seal? Or do you wait till year 3 and then chip seal over the?
Well, you wanna give it a couple years to crack and do its thing. It just depends on the street, like, we have a street over here that we're gonna crack seal this week because the gutter doesn't drain real well. So the water sits in the gutter pan a little longer than it should. And so we wanna seal that one up so it doesn't get, but yeah, you wanna mill it, overlay it, get your fresh mat of asphalt down, give it a couple years to crack. So, you know, you don't wanna crack seal it and then have to go back 3 years and crack seal it again. And so you crack seal it, you seal up the gutters and the gutter pans, and then you chip seal it.
The next year?
Yeah, preferably. But what chip seal is, chip seal puts an oil on the top of your asphalt to keep the longevity of the asphalt, because from the water and the snow and the sand and everything that we put on it, the oil comes out of that top layer of your asphalt street, and then it dries out, and then it starts to pit out, and it starts to get potholes, and so that's what a chip seal does, is it puts the oil back, a protective layer on that, on the surface of the street, just for, you know, sun, water, everything that, all the elements that.
Is Bituminous the company that we've used to chip seal in the past? No, who did the chip sealing in the
We're
past?
not a game team.
Oh, yeah,
Top coat.
Top Coat.
They do it.
So
Little bit.
So
I
what,
think they have. Go ahead, Austin, I'm
Do we do
sorry.
any of that fog coating anymore?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a, fog coat is to help hold the chips on longer.
So that's the same, happens the same year that you chip seal it?
Yeah. It's just another process to the
Just
chip
another
seal.
process.
So you put the oil on, then you put the chips on, then you go back and you sweep up the chips, and then you fog coat it, and that just helps hold those chips on the chip seal longer. And it looks black, it looks like you got a brand new street, so.
Hmm.
Did you shut the camera on?
I shut the AC off.
I do have something to talk about when the camera's on.
Council, do you have any other questions?
I do not.